And this is the mental pressure that comes in the form of questions, seeking answers, or really to know the hows and whys of life. And it's this mental pressure that is also felt as inspiration or understood as inspiration. Design reveals who you are energetically and who you came here to be. I'm Dana, Human Design Specialist.
And I'm Haley, the Human Design Newbie. Listen in as we explore how leaning into your authentic self is your ultimate path to success. Welcome to the Human Design Hive podcast. Let's get into it.
Hey there, Haley.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
Experimenting with our new little intro there, a little adjustment to the intro.
A little change.
Of course, now, when are you going to say,
my dun dun
dun dun dun? Maybe you'll have to surprise me at a moment in the podcast that feels really profound.
I'll keep an ear out.
Yeah. So here we are. So thought we'd play around with the intro a little bit, maybe make ourselves a little conversational here at the beginning of the episode, although we did just spend 35 minutes offline, not recording, talking, because nobody needs to hear everything we talk about.
They don't need to hear that.
Yeah, a little too much senseless banter, but that's okay. So have you had a good week this week?
Yeah, it was kind of boring.
Kind of boring?
Yeah, kind of boring, but busy. We had our second kickball game of this summer season.
Kickball.
We won. We won like
way to go.
14-4, I think.
Dang.
We had one inning.
I was gonna say, did they all have one leg tied behind their backs?
No, they even hit two out of the park, or kicked, I guess technically. They even kicked two out of the park home runs.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, because there's an in the park home run too.
Oh, okay.
These were technically out of the park, I think. But we had one inning where we went through our entire lineup. And there's like 11 of us on the team.
Jeez.
And for like half of that, we were riding on like 2 outs.
Jeez, did they just give up?
I don't know.
They're we've got dinner reservations.
This was like probably like the 4th or 5th inning. It was like the middle of a game, and we just ran through the entire lineup. But they were good sports. They never really got like mean or upset, like bitchy or anything like that. They were good.
Fun and games.
Yeah.
I mean, it obviously should be a bunch of adults playing kickball.
Yeah.
At night. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah. On Thursday night. And then there's also everyone's drinking too. So it's like, it's supposed to be a good time.
Well, there you go. I ought to be young again. That's a good way to, socialize. I think when I was your age, we just worked all the time and then went to bars. Pretty sure. Although, no, not your age, because 25. Well, no, I was working a lot. But anyways, I was right there on the edge of the life I have now of having a family, having raised you. We were just talking about how weird it was for you to see at the liquor store that a 21-year-old was born in 2001.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Yeah. It's a little shocking sometimes.
Yeah, a little bit. Just a little bit.
Anyways, so let's get into it. So let me ease you into what we're talking about today, which makes it sound like it's really difficult. It's really not. I'm just really struggling to find a segue.
Yeah, all I know is you said it. I don't know if you said it'd be fun or interesting. You were excited about it though.
Oh, I don't remember that, but I'm always excited. I'm always excited to talk about. I think you could probably guess that we're moving along on this theme of centers.
I'm going to guess The head.
Yes, the head
Yes.
center. Yes,
Yes.
because we have three centers left to talk about: the head, the ajna, and the throat. And then I know we talked about doing the head and the ajna together, but then I said, you know what? That's just really not fair to the head. I think the head is often just lumped together with that ajna
It's the
because it
only
only
thing it
has,
connects to.
yeah, because it only has the three centers. Like it's less important, but it's actually quite complex and quite interesting. And so that's what we're going to talk about today is that little triangle at the top of the body graph, the
This
head
one is
center.
all about me.
That's right, Haley. You are 30% of the population with the defined head center. And that leaves me in the 70% of the population with the undefined head center. So there's considerably more of us undefined, obviously, than defined.
Mhm.
And I cut most of it out because it was rambling just now. But what just happened there of me getting confused? Totally. My open head was getting all the information incorrect.
You started it right, and then you took it back, and then you started it again, and then you took that back, and then we got to the third one.
Well, I do have it. I do have it written down wrong. So that's what I knew it wasn't right. But when you have something staring at you in the face, you're like, wait a minute. Okay, yeah. So the head center. So as we said, it's at the top of the body graph. Obviously, it's the head. And I think you said for a long time you were getting head and ajna
Mhm.
confused because
Mhm.
we associate the head with thinking.
Yeah, I still have to like think about it when I look at the graph,
Yeah.
the body graph.
And ajna, which we'll get to, is more of kind of thinking, like conceptualizing, but this is the mental activity that is where ideas and inspiration come from. And we did the root center where we talked about it being a pressure
Mhm.
center. So we have talked about the head also being pressure, a mental
Mhm.
pressure, the pressure to know and to think. And so biologically, the head center is associated with the pineal gland, which the pineal gland sits deep in the brain. Do you have any idea what that does?
Um, oh, I feel like
No.
is it a small part though? I think it's tiny.
Yeah, it's not very big, but it basically regulates the flow of information from deep inside the gray matter of the brain to the neocortex. So and if you looked at it, if you were to see, because it's kind of where you associate the third eye being, but back in the middle of
Mm-hmm.
your head, like in your brain. And so if you're looking at a body graph, the pineal gland really kind of sits where the head and the ajna meet, the two
Mm.
triangles there. And the in the human design system, the head center is also where I say the personality crystal resides, that which anchors us in the world. Because remember, we had the personality crystals, the personality
Mm-hmm.
side, the part that when you are born, part of your consciousness, and then the
Mm-hmm.
design side was in the ajna. So 90% of our mental processes take part in this unconscious gray matter part of our brain, right? That's what's regulating everything.
Okay.
And it's just below our conscious awareness. And I guess what you would refer to as subconscious awareness as well. And as we've talked about, it's all this brain activity that's filtered through our accumulated past experiences. And so it's a little biased. Let's just
Mm-hmm.
say that. Which,
Yeah.
as we move forward in this podcast, we're definitely going to dig into more of that. I know we've touched on it some, but it's something that's really important for us to do is to look at our own filters of
Mm-hmm.
what we think reality is. But anyways, ooh, my watch is telling me to stand up. Which I pointed out because, like I said, I was just editing our last podcast and we were talking about the center and making sure you have to move and how I disregard my watch so often. So Maybe I'll stand up. I'll pretend to stand up.
Just stand up in your mind.
I am standing up in my mind. uh, Back to the head center then. So, this pressure, let's talk about the mental pressure. So, we are talking about the brain and mental processes. And this is the mental pressure that comes in the form of questions, seeking answers, or really to know the hows and whys of life. And it's this mental pressure that is also felt as inspiration or understood as inspiration. And as we said, it's the top of the pressure sandwich there, the human being. Yeah. And it's just trying to make sense of the world. So this pressure of the head center, it moves that energy, our thoughts and our questions towards the ajna, because like you said, that's the only center it's connected to. It's not connected to anything else. It's just there to push that energy into the ajna, push it metaphorically here, to start our own processes of conceptualizing and thinking and working out the way we approach trying to answer these questions. And then that pushes our questions and opinions and clarifications and all that stuff more towards the throat. Now, this is traditional human design thinking that it just goes straight to the throat, but a lot of us don't have a connection to the throat there. We might. I do. You do not.
Nope.
But really, the role of the head center is to ask these questions and to get the thing started. We respond to it. You're inspired by it or whatever. But really, when a thought comes into your head or idea or an inspiration pops in, it creates a reaction in the brain, let's say, which is electrical activity, it's light, whatever you want to call it, creates something in your brain that then creates an emotional response from us. Remember, we talked about what our filter is, depends on what emotional response it creates. And so it's really kind of a feedback loop of the questions and the questioning and everything comes from the head, triggers the response, and then it kind of comes back through the system, through the root, and then comes back up and tries to, we talk about the right timing, which way is it going to go? Are we going to be reactionary? Are we going to be intentional? What are we going to do to help get this idea or whatever out into the world, making its way back up to the throat? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Oh no. Yeah. So that brings it back to that torus pattern of energy where it's a loop. It goes out, comes back in, goes out, comes back in, like a donut,
like a pole.
Yeah.
Or like a magnetic field.
So if you think about things, kind of like, well, the earth has that kind of magnetic energy field around it. Our bodies do, our hearts do, and as a whole, it's kind of how our energy system works. It's always processing this feedback loop, and the head kind of is the start of a lot of that thing. So like I said, so it's important to remember that this is not motorized energy, and so there's going to be a lot of activity there, but it's not designed to do anything other than to really create that activity. It's not there to do anything. But we all try to do things with our minds in the sense that we try to answer the questions that the mind is asking, and that's not really the best use of our energy or really even how it works at all. So the pressure there is to ask questions, and we expect answers, but not designed to answer. So that can bring about a lot of anxiety. And honestly, for all of us, it can lead to a lot of not self behaviors of frustration or anger or bitterness or disappointment, whatever your type is, because we're not working with it. So as we said, defined head, 30%. That puts you squarely in that category.
Yes.
Very defined head.
And then I would be curious to know what percentage of that 30%. has all three gates.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for you to say, like, just how special am I?
It's like, you know me.
Because, yes, you have a defined head connected to the ajna, and you have just one channel, but you do have all three gates activated in the head.
Yep.
Very active mentally.
And one is my conscious sun, I believe.
And the other one's your conscious earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, your conscious sun 63 and conscious earth 64, which obviously we're going to dig into those gates here in a second. But yep, it is a. And let's just lay it all out there. I mean, if everybody hasn't already constructed a mental map in their head of Haley's bodygraph and mine, because we talk about them all the time. Haley has those two defined centers up there, the head and the ajna, and then she just has the spleen and the root defined way down there on the other end of the body graph. So yes, Haley spends a lot of time in her head. That's okay. That's how you're designed, right?
Yeah.
You are designed to. That is one of your gifts is your power to inspire others around you with that defined head, because the rest of us are picking up what you're putting down there, which we'll talk about in a minute. So yes, so if you have a defined head, you could either have if you have, I almost got it backwards in my you automatically have a defined ajna, as we say, because it's the only thing that it connects to, right, is the ajna. So you are probably someone who is always thinking, reviewing, researching, and trying to find an answer, even if you don't realize you're doing it, and probably have a deep-seated need to understand and explain anything and everything. Like I said, it may not be constantly aware of it, but your activity with a defined head, your mental or your head energy is always on. It's always available. So that also means that you tend to have a more fixed way of thinking, especially that's what activations or definition in the ajna is definitely. That's what contributes to that, is where it connects to the ajna of your way of seeing things. So yours is in that 6447 channel. And like I said, we'll talk about the 64 in a minute, but just touching briefly on circuitry, we know that is part of, the channel is called abstraction, but it is the sensing circuit. It's about sensing experience. It's not about logic. It's about the other side of the coin. But anyways, so the themes of the particular gates or channels that you have that defines your head is the source of inspiration that you offer and have available to others. So this you can put with a defined head center of other people under a lot of pressure to think which we know that's true, right?
You gotta give your prime example.
Okay, well, I don't want to go too deep because I think it's just funny to us, but as far as the one time, but my point being with this is that my daughter Haley, my sister Nancy, hello Nancy, if you're listening, they have the same definition configuration of head and ajna gates. You guys have all three gates and you have the same channel. You have the same configuration.
Oh, I didn't know that. Even more twins.
Yes. And then Presley has defined head and ajna, but through the 61, through that channel. And then Nancy's husband also has defined head and ajna. And I realized one of the last times we were all together that whenever we're all together, I do feel, I didn't realize it. I do feel this like anxiety kind of around you guys. It's not really bad anxiety. It's just kind of always this nervousness. And I'm always concerned and worried about like what everybody's thinking about what we're doing and what we're going to do next and how they feel about it. I mean, it's just constant. And then I realized one day it was because you guys all have defined heads Because when I talk to you individually, you're all like, I don't care. I don't really care about this. I'm not thinking about it. I'm not doing any of it. And I'm just like, but how? There's so much tension in the room, which there's not. All of you guys with your defined heads were all in your own defined heads and not
Mhm.
even given a thought about what anybody else in the room was thinking. And I was consumed with all of your mental energy. And your father is the same way too, because he has the same as I have a completely open head. And so we are the ones that tend to be a lot more like, I don't want it's not observant. I think we're just heightened feeling around you guys of what's happening in the group and the dynamic. And it's
Mhm.
now it's kind of comforting that it's just energy, man. It's just energy. Nobody really cares. But my sister's already told me that before. She's always said, uh, I just think you read too much into things sometimes, and I don't even think about those things that you're thinking about. And I'm like, well, yes, you are.
Yes, you are,
No,
because you put it in my head.
no. I mean, I'm not. She is as you are, I think, in your own mental process most of the time, and really are not even thinking about how other people are thinking. Is that true?
Well, no, I do because I think I do because I like to people watch and observe
Yes.
and not judge, but yes, judge other
Observe
people
and
and what they're
comment,
doing.
Haley.
Yes, observe and comment. So then I like I'm like, oh, everyone's doing it to me too. And then sometimes I just have to tell myself, I was like, no one is paying attention to what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like when I go to the gym, I'm like, no one is looking at what I'm doing.
Yeah, that is the normal thought of everybody in a situation where they're exercising in front of a mirror or in front of other people. Yeah, that's definitely true. We would all say in the yoga class, be like, don't worry about it. Just get in here. Nobody cares what you're doing because they're all
Mhm.
worried that you care that what they're doing. So back, I don't even know where we were.
We talking about me and
Oh,
Nancy
putting
being
us
in our
under
own mental
pressure.
processes.
No, putting others under pressure to think.
Yes.
So, like I said, you guys, defined heads tend to always be in their own process thinking and under this their own sense of pressure to resolve their own thoughts and to understand their own inspiration and answering questions. And if they allow themselves to be overwhelmed by this pressure to resolve an answer, it can turn into a mental pressure that you're turning on yourself, which is not good. And that can result in a lot of anxiety, self-doubt, depression. Because here's the thing, if I cannot say this enough, and may this be my legacy for everybody to hear and know, that your mind is not going to answer your questions for you. It is something that has to be, it's just going to keep giving you more questions because that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to question because, and then allow the answers to come to you either through sensations in your body or through other people. It's your interaction with the quantum soup, so to speak. It's the questioning is what starts the process of something coming towards you or happening or working out a problem. It's because let me tell you, every time you think you have an answer from your mind, it just brings another question. Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, I've got the answer. Do you? Do you? No, I don't.
Well, what about this? Or what about
Oh,
that?
so likewise, as far as turning it on yourself can be bad, but also if you then try to relieve that pressure because you've turned all this questioning and anxiety on yourself, if you try to turn it back around and do something with it, initiate something with it, and it's not your strategy, well, then it's usually some kind of messy, hasty activity or missed opportunity. So, again, what could be the cure for all that is to allow yourself to use your strategy and authority when it comes to working with the mental pressure from your defined head center and to make peace with the fact that, especially in your situation with having activations in all three gates, make peace with the fact that there is quite often going to be confusion and doubt and a lack of clarity. and to just kind of ponder and muse and ask the questions, but don't expect an answer, right? I know that's hard to do, but it's kind of
Yes.
like, but sometimes you can do that. You can literally just say, well, what could happen if, or what do I need to do, or how could this resolve? And then just let it go. But question, question, question. Anyways, lots of questions. So ask the questions, but try not to act on it like immediately. Think you have the answer and try to act on it. That's the real challenge there, is to let your strategy and authority tell you what to do, not
Mm-hmm.
your head. So for undefined head centers, the 70% of the population that's out there receiving all this inspiration from you, um, we are open to all sorts of inspiration from all around us. And things can seem to pop into our head at any time, which it literally can, depending on who you're around, because you're amplifying and reflecting back what is around you in your open centers. But there's probably not a very consistent way of delivering that information or inspiration as it comes in. And so people with undefined head centers kind of have a different pressure of thinking about things that either don't apply to them or aren't really important. It's not their questions. They're literally can be trying to answer other people's questions and trying to figure things out that doesn't even pertain to them. It's just you kind of get stuck in this this loop of, well, okay, like me in the room with all you guys, right? I'm trying to figure out all the mental pressure and what it all means and what's the answer, and it's just, it's not, there's nothing there. It's just not for me to even worry about, because you're not worried about it, so don't worry about it, right? So it can be very easy for someone with an undefined head to get kind of lost in their mental chatter because it's amplified. It feels very, very
Mm-hmm.
real. So undefined heads are open to inspiration everywhere and may even enjoy immersing themselves in inspiring environments and like to be around inspiring people, because when they're not around them, they don't have that feeling of inspiration, or just random, especially if you're isolated by yourself. But they can, which I can attest to, like I said, because I get very inspired seeing things on TV, talking to people, listening to podcasts. I'm always like, "Ooh, maybe that's what I should think about doing. Ooh, that's really great." I mean, I can get super inspired, and then when I'm by myself, I could just say, "Okay, I'm going to do something with all this inspiration," and then I sit down and it's literally blank. I got nothing. I got nothing. It's frustrating because I think
Yeah.
I've told you that or I've told others, because I do listen to podcasts or when I'm driving, and
Mm-hmm.
I will receive inspiration, and it's hard to do when you're driving to do something with these thoughts. So I do have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of voice to text memos, and come back to them later and be like, wow, I don't even remember having that thought, but it's a good thing I managed to speak it into my phone so it captured it, because otherwise it'd be gone.
And
Okay, so
sometimes you have to retranslate it.
yes, quite often. Oh gosh. Okay. So when we go back to talking about trying to solve other people's questions, problems, resolve them, uh, it's a pressure center, just like the root, and the root center is always like the pressure to do. So people are always trying to get rid of that pressure. It's kind of the same thing in the head center, trying to get rid of that pressure by trying to resolve the problem or the question. So it can make it difficult for people with the undefined head to empty all that stuff out of their head and be able to relax.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes even more pressure, because it's just it's a bad cycle to get into if you don't understand what's happening. Which, I mean, just look at our world. You know, we talked about in the sacral episode about all these generators, what, 70% of the population being generators doing work they don't want to do, and now you've got 70% of the population with open heads responding to everybody else's mental anxiety. I mean, is it any doubt? Because even if there aren't even if there aren't defined people in the area, we're still, there's a lot going on in our mental environment
Mm-hmm.
that, yeah, no wonder it's becoming so popular to tell people that you need to meditate, you need to spend some time alone, you need some self-care, you need some ways to discharge all this shit in your head all the
Mm-hmm.
time. It's important. I mean, I think I've, talked about it before. The whole reason I started on this whole whatever personal development, personal journey was I had really bad anxiety of worrying about everything all the time and being a new mom and not getting enough sleep. And I literally was worried about everything. And worry is something I still struggle with all the time. But now I know it's a mechanic of my brain, which I learned that before human design as well. But now I know even more so that it's just there's nothing you can do with worrying.
Mm-hmm.
It's so unconstructive. Is that a word? Unconstructive? Yes.
Maybe. I mean, it doesn't sound wrong.
Doesn't sound wrong, but does it sound right? Not constructive? Is there an unconstructive? Is it just not constructive?
Unconstructive sounds more right than not constructive.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Please don't come after us.
No, don't come after us. We're trying. So yeah, so first because I didn't know what else to do with that mental pressure. I didn't know. I did what everybody else does. They go see a doctor and then a doctor puts you on medication. And it quote unquote helped at the time, but um it didn't help me become happy. It just kind of stopped the chatter as much, helped me sleep a little bit better. But what really changed the tide for me was when I did start practicing mindfulness and meditation, which that's the road or the route to go if you're an undefined head, or in my case, I'm completely open head. There's no activations there. Um, is to start cultivating these mindfulness practices because it helps you empty out all the things. Just like as a projector, it's good for you at the end of the day to kind of lay flat and discharge all that sacral energy that's around you all the time, if you're around a lot of sacrals, and to help get you back to that baseline. It's super important for the undefined heads to do that as well, is to empty that out and let the mind just, or let the head just kind of get back to a baseline. And that's, like I said, that's where meditation comes in. And that's where, when all that mental chatter goes away, you can be more connected to the quantum around you and receive real inspiration. Were you going to say something? Maybe it was just the way you're holding glasses. It looked like you were about ready to say something very poignant.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So, all right. So, that being said, to discern what is truly inspiring for the undefined head, they need to allow that mental pressure amplified to just pass through them without identifying with any part of it. Same as you would with emotional energy. You just observe it. If you're open emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
you can experience it, but you don't have to hold on to it. And that's what a lot
Okay.
of the openness is about, is experiencing it, letting it go. And then over time, with this, allowing this mental pressure to just kind of move through, you can get more comfortable with it and become sensitive to the nuances of the head center. And this is where you become wise if you're undefined here. And it can help you kind of gauge who uses their minds effectively and who does not. And you may even be sensitive enough to kind of know what others are thinking at
Oh.
times. We could all do that. But so, really, some not self talk of an undefined center, because I mean, we haven't done this too much, but I think it's important to hear some of these questions of what it sounds like when you're always, have an undefined head center, what it is might be going through your head. Like, I need to go find something to be inspired. I need to be around inspiring people. Maybe if I'll go there, I'll be inspired. I need to find an answer to my questions. Where can I go find the questions? Who has the answers? It's just this constant loop in your head of trying to figure it out. And there's no figuring it out. It's just let it move through. So, as we said, this pressure is going to be pushing down towards the ajna
Mm-hmm.
through 3 channels.
Yes.
Yes. And these three channels represent kind of three different time frames in our experience. And they are the past through the 64, the present through the 61 up the middle, and the
Mhm.
future through the 63 on the right.
It's a Christmas carol.
Didn't see that coming. Okay. So the 64 begins sorting through the sometimes confusing model of past experiences and finding meaning. So because it's that sensing channel, like I was saying, it was starting at the beginning, that is all
Mhm.
about experience and what has happened and what we can learn from that experience. And so someone with that gate, or especially that was isolated just the gate, you may be always sifting and sorting through memories and experience and trying to make sense of what has already occurred, either to all of us or yourself personally or whatever. It's that part. And then the 61 takes and processes what's new and what's worth pondering in the moment. So that's a present moment. That's a knowingness channel. That's the start of that individual circuitry and knowing.
Mhm.
And then the 64,
No, 63.
oh, sorry, 63 formulates questions focused on the future and securing our future. It's logic, it's reasoning, like it's looking at the patterns. Okay, this has happened over time. We can take these patterns and we can predict what should happen, what could happen. And so the logic channel starting there in the 63 is kind of when you think about the scientific process and how that works. It's like you start with a question and then you go through what you expect and think could happen as you formulate your answer, right? You
Mhm.
know more about the scientific process than I do. You had more successful science classes than I did. I would say. But anyway, so let's go into gate 64 as another
Man,
dun 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 moment.
my ear is not hanging out too well. It's not listening out.
your, your ear's not hanging out too well. Okay.
Well, earlier I said I'd keep an ear out, so I
Oh,
don't
I
know.
missed that part. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Maybe the
Apparently my
listener
ear
heard
was not
it.
hanging out either. Okay, so gate 64 is called before completion, and it's also called the gate of confusion.
Oh,
And in quantum human design, it's called divine transference.
that
And
one
so,
sounds the best.
yeah, I mean, they're all accurate. So, um, in traditional human design, it says it's the abstract pressure to make sense of the past and to resolve the chaos and confusion. It's kind of what we said.
Hmm.
And the question that is usually associated with this is how? Okay, how did this happen? How did it go? How is it going to happen? It's this questioning of how, which I love that they all kind of have their little questions. And it's also, when you think how, it's a good way to formulate questions even about things that you would like to make sense of for your future as well. If you're doing like contemplative journaling and stuff, how did this occur? What can I do differently in the future? That's kind of what these gates are all about, right? So this is, as I said, it's collective energy. Also, you're under this mental pressure to take issues and events from the past and make sense of it. Like I said, not even just personally, but just in the world. How does that sound so far? Do
I
you feel
mean,
like you're always trying to figure things out from what has already occurred?
I'm not that I like maybe notice consciously.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I am always trying to understand how things work and why something is the way it is and why does it happen like this and not like this. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if I necessarily,
Well, I
I
mean,
don't
you
know.
have all three gates, so
There's a lot.
it's all a mixed bag up there. Well, how about this? How about there being a certain amount of confusion as part of your life?
Yeah,
You
there's some
feel
confusion.
confused?
Yeah.
So, people with gate 64 can be very visual and abstract kind of way, meaning when you think about memories, they're not words necessarily. You're getting these mental pictures, right? Memories
Mm-hmm.
from the past. It's there's no language there in the sense that it's like taking all these flashes of pictures and ideas in that abstract way of trying to kind of piece it all together. And the goal here is to accept that pressure and not necessarily trying to figure out how they piece all together to force it, but just allow it to kind of, that ruminating and keep ruminating. And then it'll just kind of click into place. Like you'll know what you need to know when you need to know it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're always trying to make sense of it because that's what this energy is. But sometimes you just have to be patient. And so this is the gate of the left eye
Oh.
in the right hemisphere of the brain. So this is associated with right brain thinking. Therefore, it is associated with this more visual and more creative component as the right brain is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, I know you're always looking at my hands. I'm talking with my hands. Because I put my finger up and I watched your face go nuts. If you think about it, at the other end of the body graph, the bottom of the body graph, gate 41 is
Uh-huh.
the other end of this circuit, which is also
Ooh.
visual, and it's having a vision and what you want to create, what experience you want to have. So think about that. Gate 64 ponders the question and then sends the energy out, and then it comes back through, and the process starts of like, okay, what can we do with this? Right? It's like, I have this vision of what I want to do. Is it, worth it? Is it something I'm going to do? So it's really interesting how it all works
I
together.
have both ends of that little
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yeah, and I would say I was pondering this in the car when I was thinking about this when I wasn't driving. Ian was driving. Um, Sometimes, how they say like when you look one way or the other when you're talking, if you're remembering something, or like if you're trying
Yeah,
to
I
recall
think if you
something.
look up and to the left, I think
Hmm.
that is lying. I think.
Lying. I wasn't talking about lying.
No, but I know you weren't talking about lying, but I think that's the direction that if you look, it's more of like a lie. I think it's that way.
Hmm. Well, I would say I meant to look into it more before we talked about it, but it just occurred to me now. Um, I would say, I'm always like, which way am I looking when I'm trying to remember things? And which way do I look when I'm trying to think of new things or, pondering a question or
Mhm.
whatever? I'll have to look that up. But, anyways, so I can move on from that. As I said, since this is kind of remembering and it's visual, this information sometimes to the gate 64 can come in like big chunks of downloads that can like flood you at once with a lot of information.
Mhm.
And or in the next minute there could be just like nothing. It can fluctuate either way. The confusion here comes, the name of the gate, confusion comes when you take this abstract right brain process and try to squeeze it into a left brain logical way of thinking. Yeah, which I could see that could happen because you have a hanging gate over there feeling that you have to have an answer all the time, and
Mhm.
a logical answer, and you just may not. It's got to take time to see what happens and what you come up with eventually.
Mhm.
So if the timing's not right, the steps of the how and what's going to happen can get very, very cloudy. So using your strategy and authority, of course, is very important because you have to really make peace with not knowing how things are going to happen. Remember, it's not logic. So you just gotta use your strategy and authority, ask the questions, let your environment and your body do the rest, answer the question. I was reading somewhere it could be very helpful for especially children who have this configuration, this gate, to when they're trying to learn something or remember something, is to not try to learn it in that linear, more logical, just rote, thing. They think in chunks almost.
Mhm.
To take pieces of information, write it out on note cards, right? and then take the note cards and move them around to where they make sense. Right? Mind blown for you, isn't it?
Yes.
That's how you got through high school and college.
That's how I wrote every well, that's how I wrote every research paper.
Mm-hmm.
Just write
Yeah.
everything down on note cards and then put it in the order that I wanted.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, you were shown that by a teacher of yours.
But
But
it was the easiest thing for me.
mm-hmm. Yeah, because
Like,
it chunks down that information into
mhm.
manageable pieces and you can visually see it in front of you.
Yeah.
Same thing as adult. If you're struggling with that, get the note cards, get the sticky notes, have the whole wall of your office if you're trying to put something
Oh yeah.
together, a presentation or book or whatever.
I love more tactile things. Like I have a million sticky notes on my desk. I
Yeah.
like to write things down with pen and paper.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels better.
Well, you were born in the last century, so
Good God, stop.
you're still part of the pen and paper generation.
I'll never give up.
Okay. Sorry about that. Oh, I might have to cut out the part about moving on because there's a few more things here I forgot. Because we were talking about the organizing thing, and also um, suggests that as kids, these were people that had these big ideas for projects or experiments. The science experiment that had like 14 steps, or I don't know, maybe the kid that dressed as an anemone for Halloween. Most
Homecoming.
Oh, I'm
Homecoming.
sorry, homecoming, most complicated costume I've ever seen, but she
It
stuck
was
to it.
the best one. Thank you.
Yeah, she covered her. I don't even know how you did it, but you had a vision. You had a vision.
We took I had a pink shirt, like a pink just t-shirt, and we
Mm-hmm.
sewed like little strings of yarn onto it so that we could tie it around the middle of the balloon. And then
Mm-hmm.
I just had a bunch of like long, skinny balloons on the front of my shirt.
Now, I would say, so you had the idea of how you wanted to do it, but how
Uh-huh.
did it come about? Was it talking to your dad?
Yeah, I think he was the one that had the idea for the yarn.
So he has a completely open head center. So I guess he was able to kind of catch your vision there.
Mm-hmm.
And he had the skills of his he has quite a skill set
Yes.
to figure out how to solve that problem. And so that's that energy at work. It's really cool because you had the vision, you could see it, but you couldn't exactly like put all the pieces together. You
Yeah, because
tried.
I don't even think I had like any like reference pictures or anything to be
No.
like, this is what I'm thinking. I think it was just in my head. Because our homecoming thing, we were the Seahawks. That was our mascot. So our senior
Hmm.
homecoming, it was under the Seahawks.
Hmm.
So I wanted to
It
know
was
because I love
hilarious.
Finding Nemo.
And you spent all day at school wearing those balloons all over
Yes,
you.
and so I was, so I didn't have any balloons on my back, which was smart. And so I would, when I would get into the classroom, I would have to spin my shirt around and then still sit in the chair backwards. I was like halfway in the seat trying to take my notes.
You were committed.
It was.
Oh, that's funny. So, yeah, I would say that's an expression of your energy. Also, another note: when this gate speaks, it remember it's just in the head there. It can often be confusing to others and has to speak sometimes around and around in an idea until it hits upon some sort of sense, which I can understand that as well. I feel that a lot. I'm
Mhm.
not defined there, but because again, like you said,
Sometimes.
you're seeing these bits of information and
Mhm.
they can kind of fit together. You just can't always make the connection.
Sometimes when I'm trying to explain it, I accidentally leave out parts because I can see
Oh
it and I
yeah.
can hear it in my head, and then I leave it out, and then everyone's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And then I'm like, "No, it
Oh,
has this." They're like, "Oh, he didn't say that." I was like,
oh, you
"Oh,
mean
well,
the
yeah."
Haley way of telling a story. So
It
true.
takes like 4 turns in a story.
And you're like, and we start asking you questions. You're like, no, no, wait. I forgot this part. It's true.
My
I guess
stories are always so long.
I guess that's part of that energy. Mm. That's funny. That is funny. So, oh yeah, that is a function of the gate. It takes time sometimes for these little pieces of information to organize in your head, but when you do have that clarity, it's that you can have the clarity, get that aha out of it, and share it with others. You don't necessarily have to act on it, but if you share it with others, then it can be acted on. It's a gift. I've got so many memories now myself flooding through of little Haleyisms that I'm getting a new a new insight into through human
Oh, save
design.
them. I want to hear them, but we don't have to do them
It's
on
so
air.
fun. That's why I love human design, because it's always been there in you. We didn't do anything to say, oh, you
Activated.
now have your design. I mean, it's been there all along. We just weren't aware of it. And now we can see it. It's like, yes, that's why I love, because that's why I have to look up everybody's design now that I can, because it helps me learn with each person that I look at their body graph, but also it helps me learn the system, but then it also helps me understand people better, which
Mhm.
that's my jam. Love understanding people. Okay, so let's move on. There's only 3 gates, and I'm still going to make this an hour and 20-minute long episode.
It's a good thing we didn't combine them.
I know. Well, I thought of that because I was like, I always overestimate. Is it overestimate myself as to what I can
Underestimate.
get? No, I think I'm
Un-
overestimating what I can cover in a certain amount of time. I think, well, it's only 3 gates. How long could the episode be? But
I
then,
think that's underestimating because you may think, oh, it's only going to be 30 minutes, but then it turns into an hour and a half. I think that's underestimating. I
I was thinking I was overestimating my ability to do it.
think that's still underestimating. Because, like, overestimating something, your ability to do something, would
Mm-hmm.
be thinking that you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, say, if you thought you could jump over a creek and then you try it and you fall into the creek,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's overestimating your ability.
You don't think that's underestimating your ability?
No, because you think you can do it.
And you can.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. I think I can get a short episode and I can't. It's overestimating.
It's both.
You're looking at me like I don't want that to be right.
I don't know.
Uh, we'll see if we leave
Maybe
that
it
in.
could both be, depending on how you look at it, I guess.
I don't know. We'll move on. It's not important.
We digress.
So much. Moving on. Gate 61, there in the middle. Gate
Mhm.
of, or excuse me, it's called Inner Truth, and it's the gate
Oh,
of mystery. And in
oh.
quantum human design, gate of wonder. She calls it wonder. And this is the mutated pressure to know something new, to understand the mysteries, and to know the unknowable.
Oh, good God, that's Presley.
Right? That's his definition there. And the questions associated with this gate is why. Always trying to figure out why. Mm-hmm. So these are people who are under considerable pressure to resolve what is unknown. And it is individual circuitry. It's the beginning of the individual circuit. And it is this initiating sequence into mutative thinking. It has the task of translating its knowingness without the benefit of logic. You're going to appreciate this statement.
Oh.
Gate 61 just knows. Period. The end.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yes. And I know Presley well enough now to know, say yes.
Uh-huh.
Because I don't know how many times I've heard you ask him a question. He's like, well, I don't know, Haley. Just it just is, okay? I don't have time to figure it out. I just know what it is. So these are people who are great thinkers, and they love to dig into the unknown mystery, even of the occult mysteries, things that aren't knowable, like it says, knowing the unknown, and really just trying to make sense of that. It
Mhm.
has a desire to know why, and it has a need for clarity. And so these are also people who are great detectors of truth. This is what comes with knowingness. You just know what's true and what's not true.
Mhm.
And so there's no conning someone with gate 61 present and active. They know truth from bullshit, basically. Let's just put it
Mhm.
plain. I say, does that resonate? I mean,
Yeah,
you also have this gate. I mean,
I know
it's
I
his
do.
channel. Mm-hmm.
I was thinking because like my favorite thing to listen to is true crime,
Mm-hmm.
but then within that, my favorite type of true crime is
Mm-hmm.
like mysterious disappearances,
Mm-hmm.
like people that just like up and vanish. Like
Mm-hmm.
I love those ones because there's like just so much like some of them are so weird and they still don't know and it's like oh it's
And
weird.
that makes me so uncomfortable. I was thinking about that the other day because one of the podcasts I listened to, I think, well, it's Smartless. It makes it sound like the only podcast I listen to, but it's on Wondery or whatever, and they were promoting a
Mhm.
new podcast about uh, that exact thing. People who have vanished, and the way they start describe about a loved one, vanishing. I was like, oh my gosh, it's like I- it's my worst. It's terrible. It's
Mhm.
terrible what these people go through, and for me, it's just like I'll just spiral with that. I can't. I can't. I don't want to listen to that continuously. I
Mhm.
take it in too much, which is you would. I don't know why. I don't take it in too much. Okay, so with this knowingness, they can often get ahead of themselves in their knowingness. Like there's more of a you don't always have all the pieces again, right? It's just
Mhm.
you have what you know, can get ahead of yourself, and it can often skip steps and try to move through to this bigger awareness without acknowledging all the things in between that kind of need to either happen or piece together. So 61 has to wait to know more. If that.
I feel like I have that aspect
Mhm.
tampered because I like to follow the steps. I follow the
Mhm.
instructions.
Mhm.
I do not skip.
Well, like I said, you have all three gates, and there's obviously other things in your design that support that as well. That attention to detail, as we talked about, some of your
Mhm.
other activations there. So the thinking here in this gate is done simply a lot of times just for the gate of thinking. They could be asked, why are you thinking? Well, because it's just fun to think. It's just fun to ponder, think, ruminate, turn it over, that kind
Oh
of
yeah.
thing. And
Presley all the time, he's always thinking about something. And I'll just kind of be sit on the couch and he's like, what are you thinking about? I'm like, I don't know.
mhm, yeah.
And he's like always got something in his head. And I'm like, yeah.
Well, he has the full channel. And so there's a way to direct that knowingness for him to get it, into more of an action space than you have. You're
Mhm.
just up there thinking. Don't necessarily have the
Oh,
other end of the channel to help.
sometimes I'm not sure if I'm always thinking though.
Something's happening. I don't know. You're lost up there. It says in this knowingness gate, again, if you're not meant to really solve the mystery, try to force, I shouldn't say, not that you won't, but not try to force it. Just allow the musing to happen, to occur, and to enjoy the thoughts, and let your inner knowingness, this inner truth, reveal itself its own unique way and time. And these flashes of inspiration and knowingness can often come in moments of stillness. So when you think about, there's so many great minds that have come before us, but what do they say? A lot of times, the great scientific breakthroughs um, don't occur in the lab when they're trying to force the question.
Mhm.
It's usually when they're doing something completely unrelated and not thinking that the
Yeah.
inspiration, or not the inspiration, but the answer comes through in the form of,
Mhm.
I got it.
Or it's like people say they have like really great ideas when they're like in the shower.
Hmm.
You're just kind of doing something
Hmm.
like completely different.
Well, because that's like, well, the water, it's warm, it's relaxing. But I mean, some people, I mean, the fact that they're moving TVs into showers is crazy to me. Like, who, like, you can spend 5 minutes away from the
Putting TVs
TV.
in showers?
Yeah, they've got ways to do it now. Heck, they just put it in the surface of your mirror. They put TVs everywhere now so that you can always be connected to probably more like your computer screen type thing. But yeah, it's there.
No thanks.
Yeah. Let's see. So, because this is what they always are calling mutative energy, meaning it's in the individual circuitry, it's meant to change and get things moving. The thinking done in this gate is often bound to be a little different than others around them. So, again, key here is to wait for right timing or the right people to ask you to share what you know or even what you're thinking about. Because when there is a unique insight that you may have, if you wait for the right time to express it, it can feel really great to know that what you were thinking about can either inspire or empower or help change others, help them feel empowered. So it's a lot of power there in waiting. What?
Thanks.
I we had talked about this before. We were talking about this gate being the like, I referred to it as like the Sherlock Holmes of, because it's a gate of mystery and like you're saying solving mysteries. He always couldn't explain how he knew what he knew. He just kind of knew something wasn't right. There was what looked to be the answer was not the answer, and it didn't make sense to everybody else around him what he was doing a lot of times.
Yeah.
And what are you doing? He's lost his mind. And he didn't try to explain himself really to people at all.
And
He
then
just kept,
it would kind of just fall into place at the end.
yeah, it knew there was something there. And that's kind of the energy, I think, in this gate of knowing, can't explain it, but you also know that it's true. Okay. Gate 63. After completion, it's called I Ching, and it's the gate of doubt. Yes. Or in quantum human design, it's the gate of curiosity.
Better spin on it.
And this is the logical pressure to make sense of the pattern through doubt, looking for the logic or a new pattern. Again, like we said, it's the start of that logic circuitry, also known as the understanding circuit, making sense of it. And the question is really, can you prove it? Or the question is, what? Can you prove it? What do you think about that?
That one's a minor bone of contention in our relationship of can you prove it?
Both of you?
Mainly for me, because I think it's mainly like I'll ask him a question, he gives me an answer, and then I have to look it up to make sure it's right. And he's like, why do you have to look it up every time? Why can't you just accept that I know what it is? I was like, because I can't.
Because I can't. I am designed to doubt what you say to me.
Look it up.
That's funny. It's true though, because this contains the inspiration for logic, but it's also full of doubt and suspicion and asking for demand of proof. And so people with this gate will have a tendency to be thoughtful and suspicious of everything, including their own insights and abilities. Doubtful. So you can see how this is valuable energy in a logical, like scientific process, is doubting, that this is actually true. Could there be another way? Or what is it we don't know about this situation? What can we change? Blah, 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 all the questions. It's good for that. It's not good for your own personal energy to constantly be doubting yourself or questioning yourself. And so not likewise, but therefore, this is energy that should be pointed more outwards towards information and not towards yourself or other people. So it is being collective energy in this logical circuitry. The purpose is to kind of refine the information in the world, get to the truth. what's what could be better.
Because if you just accept something for face value, it may not always be good.
Well, yeah. Especially if you're someone
Well,
without any
yeah.
activations in the head. You're like, you believe anything anybody tells you. Just kidding. Oh gosh. So yeah, so this doubt and suspicion and this needing for proof, like I said, it's good for that scientific process, and it's always asking the question what if, which is really good for the creative process as well, because like if you start having these questions like, well, I mean, even, that's how innovation occurs, is somebody asks the question, well, what if we did something differently? What if we did this? We know XYZ works. What if there's
Mhm.
another way? And that's where this process starts. And it's a way of using questioning and curiosity as a way of stimulating new ideas and possibilities. And it questions what it sees, like you said, and what it hears, and asks, is it true? What can be done differently? What do we really know? That is the energy there in the gate 63,
Mhm.
which I think you can, like you said, you it's funny because you started this, you're like, I'm a defined head. I don't know that I'm always like sitting around asking questions, which, but now that we've talked about all three of these questions, or all three of these gates, you can definitely identify with those energies, correct?
Mhm. I mean, I always kind of knew that I was a very question oriented person.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I'd always be out with daddy asking him how things
Mm-hmm.
worked and why he's doing that and what happens if that does that and
Mm-hmm.
all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wanted to know how it worked.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you definitely did do that for sure.
Mhm.
And as I said earlier, seeing this in your design, it makes so much sense now. It just kind of gives us a clearer picture of understanding of how you operate and how your energy
Mhm.
operates. But it also shows me that looking into your possibilities for your future with all that energy in the head and the ajna, and then all that openness, and then this root energy connected to the spleen through another channel of refinement and knowing what works and what doesn't work. It's like I see you as someone who is and will be increasingly valued as a leader for what you think and what you bring to the table, and what possibilities that you will mainly have a vision for, but also will be inspiring to other people, of challenging them to question and to think differently, and leading people in that direction. We could definitely see that. And I'm your mom, but
Mhm.
even if I wasn't, I could definitely see that you are. And like I said, not only the definition there, but the fact that it's part of your sun and earth gates as
Mhm.
well, and your conscious. This
Mhm.
is a huge part of your design, is your mind, and
Yeah.
the gift that it brings to the rest of us.
Me. I am a gift.
We are all gifts, Haley.
No.
Yes, I will let you know. You are
Yes.
incredibly special. As it says in the Course of Miracles, all of us are special and none of us are special. And those are words I live by,
Yes.
because they are very true and humbling, and also heartening at the same time, to be like, we are all special, but none of us is special because we're all special.
Mhm.
Turn that around in your brain for a while. All right, so the head center complete. And well, I mean, introduction of the head center complete,
Yes.
which
Overview.
obviously I'm sure we're going to be talking about the ajna next, because that makes the most logical
I like the
sense.
logic.
And the patterns of the past saying, oh, well, we are going to where it's connected, we're putting it together, and knowing in the moment that it's the right thing to do. Good Lord,
Tying
that
it all
was
together.
that was that was really kind of weird, but
it kind of works though.
kind of works though. But I think we're going to wrap it up for today and just end that there, unless you have anything else, Haley.
Nope.
I'm hoping for one day you just come back with something like really.
Me too.
No, I don't think it'll happen. But I do always put it in your. I want to make sure you get your recognition, then have your moment to really express yourself, because that undefined throat of yours. Give you a chance to talk. All right. Well, you have a great night, and we will catch you on the next episode of the Human Design Hive podcast. Bye.
Bye.
You made it all the way to the end of today's episode, so you must have liked what you heard. If you did, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, and perhaps leave us a good review. And if you know someone who wants to dig into all things human design with us, make sure you share the Human Design Hive podcast with them. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks for listening.